Hi kids, so this is a rant video because I've been seeing a lot of stuff on Twitter and on Facebook and all of the social medias recently about Severus Snape, and I realised I'd never really spoken about him as a character or stepped up about this growing. It's always been a controversial topic in this fandom, and Joe talks about it a lot on Twitter, and I thought I would weigh in with my opinion and hope that you guys don't all hate me when I'm finished speaking. So here's the dealio. A lot of people are like, yes, Snape is a brave man. He is the hero of the story. He shows that Slytherins can be good, which, by the way, no prejudice against Slytherins, because I think the house situation where people were literally like stereotypical about the houses, that annoys me. But Snape, we need to be clear, was not a good person. So there are arguments for and against Snape as a person regarding his character and whatnot, and I see both sides. On the one hand, you've got a man who was deeply in love with a woman. He watched the man that bullied him all his childhood then end up with said woman. That was obviously very distressing for him. But we need to consider the fact that while Snape was bullied, he was also a massive arsehat when he was in school. He was part of the Death Eaters Club that they were already forming way back then. They were already very into the dark arts, which Lily did not like, and she still stayed friends with Severus despite all this, but she was, wary of where that was going, because clearly it was obvious to everyone else that this was not going to end up good. And he called her a mudblood, which was disgustingly offensive. So I'm not surprised that Lily then didn't remain friends with him. The James and the Marauders being mean to him, that's not particularly excusable. I see a lot of the arguments saying that oh, but they were just kids, they didn't know what they were doing. They were still bullying him, that's still a valid point, and they should not have done all of that. There isn't really an excuse for that at all. Their age and the fact that they're guys should not come into it at all, because you can still tell right from wrong. And saying that it was a joke as well, that still doesn't really go, as someone that's been bullied and people have been like, it was just a joke, it's not really a joke. So I do see Severus's point when talking about that. However, despite the injustice of the situation, that does sort of lean in favour of Severus in the initial early days. It's what happens with Harry and his disgusting mistreating of his role as a teacher. He's in a position of care, he should not. We need to talk about the fact that Neville Longbottom, whose parents were literally tortured with the Cruciatus Curse until they were completely insane and could not function as humans, and Neville knows this, so technically his biggest fear should be Bellatrix Lestrange, or something a lot worse than his potions teacher. His potions teacher is his biggest fear. When that boggart comes out of that cupboard, it is literally Snape. Don't we see a problem with that? And in regards to Neville Longbottom, people were saying, oh, okay, well, but Neville could have been the chosen one, so he is distinctly horrible to Neville because it could have been Lily and James would have survived, and obviously he would have still had Lily in his life, or not really, but she would have been alive at least if Neville hadn't survived and Neville's parents hadn't survived. But that's despite the point. We see Snape try to literally kill Neville's toad. He says, oh, well, Neville, your potion was so terrible, why don't we feed a drop of it to your toad and see what happens? And the only reason he doesn't do that is because something happens else that comes in and intervenes with the situation. Otherwise, he literally would have killed his toad. He would have killed this beloved pet. There's a problem with that. If we can't see that that is completely messed up, then I don't even want to think about this. From day one, Harry was trying to be a good student. He had no idea what the hell he was doing. He was thrown into this world. He had just no idea what was going on. And Snape was cruel to him from day one, showing deliberate favouritism towards his own house, which none of the other house professors do. They're all fair. They're all showing that they can be impartial, especially when it comes to deducting points or giving detentions, despite people being in their own house. But Snape just shows a complete blatant disregard for anyone other than his own house. He constantly picks on Hermione, even though she literally knows everything. She's the best student in the class by far. It's not even like she doesn't even have to work for it. We always see her working, we always see her revising and making sure that she is on top of everything. So that's all her hard work has got there, and all she gets is complete shit from Severus. We see him literally, she's been fired a curse at, and in the fourth book, and her teeth are growing really, really big, and she was already had self-conscious teeth situation because her teeth were a little bit bigger for her mouth. And when they pull her around and Snape says, I see no difference, these things are so deliberately cruel that it's unnecessary. He completely abuses his position as a teacher. As a teacher, you're supposed to be in a position of care. You're caring for students, you're teaching them, you're taking them through a really crucial part in their life where they're growing as people, and you're also particularly influential at this stage, and he's displaying nothing but unfairness and cruelty, and it's ridiculous, and it's deliberate towards these people. He's letting his own personal vendetta get in the way of his work, which is highly unprofessional and just downright cruel. Yes, it's very, very sad what happened to him. He's obviously completely miserable and lonely and depressed. He's risking his life daily to work as a double agent for Dumbledore, but ultimately he got himself into that mess in the first place, and I'm all for giving people second chances, and everyone can give a chance, or give him the opportunity to change, and I guess that's what he does in the end. He does want to turn it around, but only because of selfish reasons. He doesn't really seem to care that much about the greater good. He just cares about his love for Lily, and while that's all very sweet and everything, sometimes you got to be a little bit less selfish than that. There are bigger things going on. While you're in personal problems, like, I'm all for, I hate when people are like, oh, your problem is not valid because there are people dying, you know, because everyone has their own thing. But when it came to something like this, where he was literally letting it destroy other people's lives, you've got to have some sort of self-awareness. There's a complete lack of empathy. It's like a universe at the moment. Human race is suffering with a really big lack of empathy, and it's terrifying because it means that everyone only just really cares about themselves, and it's horrible and selfish, and it makes me sick because if everyone just cared a little bit more about everyone around them, then things would be better. And this applies completely to the Snape situation, because if he wasn't such a dickhead, he would be able to be redeeming himself even more, because, you know, in theory, he should have seen Lily and Harry, and he should have wanted to look after him and protect him, and yes, ultimately he did, but at what cost? He still was horrible to this kid, poor kid, for years. He was horrible, and it wasn't even just Harry, he was horrible to everyone that surrounded him, and it's just unnecessary and stupid. Now, I know that Jo has spoken up about this, because you've got, seems like a kind of massive divide. You've got some people that are like, no, he's an absolute hero, he's like blameless, the poor kid, all this stuff happened to him, which is fine, because I see parts of that argument as well. Then you've got the people that are like, no, hate his guts, what an absolute dickhead, he just needs to friggin' die, and I agree partially with them as well, but like, so I'm not on the fence by any means, but I do see both sides to argument. But I know that Jo spoke about it and was like, well, yes, he was flawed, but ultimately he did, you know, try and turn it around and do good and stuff, which is fair enough, and I think it's the most sort of closest thing to an impartial judgment we've got, really. But she just seems to like him a bit too much for my liking. Like, I have a problem with him, because I have a problem with teachers that abuse their position as teachers, because in my life I've dealt with teachers abusing their position of authority to do bad things, and so it's something that hits close to home with me, and it's something that I just think is so inherently wrong, and I have a massive problem with it. I had a lot of pent up anger today when I got home, so I was like, I'm going to rant about Snape, because at least I can turn it into something that I can like post and hopefully spark a healthy debate, nothing too dramatically horrible. And if you don't agree with my opinion, that's fair enough. I might not agree with yours, but that's what makes the world go around, all these different opinions, and that's a good thing, so we shouldn't get into arguments about it. Anyway, I'm gonna bust out of here before anyone comes and sets fire to my house and like writes like, we love Snape all over like my dead body, and all this got really dark real. Anyway,